put it on there.
I don't even remember the last time we saw each other. I don't know if you I think that one that remember we went was it the naval station?
So the family just got here, so they're gonna brief really quick, so we're running. And that's what I want.
Good afternoon. I'm Paco Balderrama, Chief of Police for the Fresno Police Department, and we are here to discuss homicide number 19 of this year. I'm going to give a quick recap and then also introduce the people that I have here with me. To my left, you'll recognize Lieutenant Paul Cervantes, who is over our homicide unit, and I also have the wife of our victim in this case, Leticia Rodriguez, and her family members, mother-in-law, sister-in-law. So this goes back to July the 16th of this year. This incident happened a little bit after midnight, and that's when our victim in this case, Simon Martinez, and his wife Leticia were walking home. They were at a nearby gathering when a white male came up to them and with a gun and demanded money. At that time, our victim in the case, Simon, was going to protect his family. He was going to protect his wife and himself. And despite the fact that the armed robber, did have a handgun with him, he decided to fight back, overpowered him, took him to the ground, and disarmed him. At this time, his wife got on the cell phone and called 911 and proceeded to call Fresno Police to respond to the scene. At this point, that's when a white compact vehicle pulled up next to him. A Hispanic male suspect got out of the rear passenger side and opened fire on our two victims. Leticia was shot, and our victim Simon was also shot. After that, they ran away, got in this white car, and left the area. Soon after, Fresno police officers arrived to the scene. They rendered aid to the victim. EMS personnel arrived to the scene and also rendered aid, and they were able to stabilize and transport him to CRMC. But sadly, he did die of his injuries. This is a particularly sad case because this is two victims who had nothing to do with any criminal activity. They were simply walking home from a local gathering when somebody took upon themselves to try to rob them. And clearly, Simon was a brave person who was not going to allow anyone to hurt his wife and decided to fight back. Now what we're doing here is this is the first opportunity for Leticia, his wife, to be able to say a few words, and also for us as a police department to give you updates on the case and ask for the public's help in solving this case. So I will give the microphone now to Leticia Rodriguez, who is the wife of our decedent, Simon Martinez.
This is very hard for me. My husband meant everything to me. The only mistake we made that night was walk home because it was close home. All I ask for is public help. We want justice. I have my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, and we want justice for him. He wasn't a bad guy. All he did was work home to work. That's all he did. My mother-in-law just got here from Mexico that Saturday morning, so he only spent 24 hours with him, and I don't think that's fair. I don't think none of families out there should be going through what we're going through. My brother-in-law couldn't make it, but I'm sure he's gonna see it. He's also devastated. He is angry at the same time because how can we live in these situations? I don't think it's fair. His only dream was, well, one, we made it come true. We bought our first home. We wanted to build a family. That didn't happen. We were married 3 years and just turned 3 years that Tuesday before all this happened. So here with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, I do ask people come out, help us. It can't stay like this. Families can't be going through what we're going through.
Before I give an update, if you have any questions for Ms. Leticia, she will take a couple questions. Thank you. In the past 2.5 years being Fresno Police Chief, we've had some difficult years. My first year there were 74 homicides. My second year we had 60 homicides, and this year so far I think we're at 22, which is a lot better than last year's at the rate we're going. But I can tell you that they're all bothersome. Every one of them involves a victim that was murdered. Every one of them involves a family that is affected, impacted for the rest of their lives, and it's something that I know that. Affects me as police chief. It affects Lieutenant Cervantes. It affects every single homicide detective and their supervisors, because each one of these incidents is not just an incident, not just a case file. It's a human life. But here in Fresno, I can tell you that over half of our homicides are gang related. Therefore, you have, in some circumstances, individuals who are risky people, partaking in risky behavior, whether it's selling drugs or human trafficking or some type of a gang retaliation incident, and the result is people being shot and sometimes people murdered. This is nothing like that. Our two victims in this case have no criminal history whatsoever, none. They were simply walking as a couple, going home, when somebody decided to rob them and ultimately murder one of them. As police chief, I can tell you that we're not going to put up with this. I make a promise to our community, to Leticia and the rest of her family. We will solve this homicide. I promise you, we will solve this homicide. It's just a matter of time. But we do want to reach out to the public and ask that if anybody has any information, whatever it may be, it may be surrounding that neighborhood, the individuals involved, to please let us know. You can call Crime Stoppers at 498-STOP. That's 7867. Give us the information, or you can call us directly here at police headquarters to the detective Chris Franks, 621-2427. But help us solve this homicide, because this victim was not a gang member. This victim was not involved in any criminal activity. He was a husband who decided to protect his family, protect himself, and I can't blame him for that. And the result was that he's dead now. But again, we have a solid record. The last few years, and especially this year with a 95% clearance rate, it'll be 100 after we solve this one. So I do ask for the public's help. Don't let this happen in your community without doing something about it. Does anybody have any questions for myself or Lieutenant Cervantes regarding this case? We do have a couple leads, and every crime scene has evidence, and that evidence is being processed. A lot of times we can't come out and tell the media exactly what we have, but there are still a few pieces to the puzzle that we need in order to solve this one. And I'm very confident that we're going to. But somebody out there knows something. Somebody out there knows about this case, and they feel the same way that I do. That we can't stand for this. We got to do something about it. At this point, the Crime Stoppers reward has actually been increased to $5,000. Typically, on a murder case, it's $1,000. We did reach out to Crime Stoppers, and we do thank Valley Crime Stoppers for taking the initiative and increasing the reward. Anybody who calls us and gives us information that helps us solve the case, you can remain anonymous, and that's $5,000 to you versus $1,000 on a typical homicide. So obviously the circumstances in this crime do kind of pull at the heartstrings that, you should be able to walk down the street and walk home without being robbed, without being murdered.
So you guys believe the white male who initially attacked that and the people in the car were together?
Oh, that's correct. We certainly believe that. The individual who got out of the vehicle has been described as a Hispanic male in his 20s. And certainly we do believe that that the intent was a robbery, but it resulted in homicide.
Did the white male get into the car?
They both ran down the street, and they got into the vehicle and fled the scene, is what happened.
How far away was the car from where the shooting took place?
It pulled up right up to the victims and then pulled away. And then after the shooting, they ran down and got into the car.
So there was someone else in the car?
Yes, at least a third person who was driving the vehicle, possibly more.
And you don't have a better description of the car?
At this point, it's a white compact car, And again, I'm not at liberty to discuss every detail in the case, but we do feel confident that others know more information about this, and we're asking that they be willing to share it with us.
Chief, what are some charges that they will be facing?
At the very least, murder in the first degree, and then you also have robbery, and then use of a firearm in commission of felony. At the very least, as far as what charges are going to be extended to the occupants and to the other people who facilitated this crime, we have to sit down and discuss that with the district attorney's office. But it will be a solid case, and again, I hope they're watching, and I hope they know that we're coming after them, because that is a fact, and that's something that is going to happen. Anyone else? Thank you very much for being here, and I do want to say thanks to Leticia and her family for being brave enough to stand up here and to tell your story. It's important, and clearly we do it in the name of justice, and also for Simon, who deserves justice. Thank you.
Can we get Leticia to spell her first and last name for us?
Sure. You spell your name.
Leticia, and then Rodriguez is Rodriguez.
And which one is your mom and,
This is my sister-in-law,
okay.
and then my mother-in-law.
Simon's sister.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's script them out, and then I'll talk to them in Spanish.
Yeah, absolutely. Pásale por acá.
Thank you. Okay, if we'll set up, I'll do it in Spanish here in a second.